in business and in our world specifically is the AI.
Yeah.
AI is obviously an amazing tool, depending on how you use it. But it is amazing for research. It's amazing for writing, marketing and different things and getting ideas and stuff.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast and our Whiskey Wednesday segment with Mr. Dave Savolich,
hey,
our
buddy.
producer, our COO, kind of a little of everything here at Odyssey, right? So, guys, Dave, I don't know if you noticed I'm wearing my official election 2024 election shirt. It's official.
Yeah.
Who I'm putting the stamp of approval on. Those of you that are on YouTube, you better be. I'm not telling you who I'm voting for. You got to go to YouTube and check out my T-shirt so you know who I'm voting for. Right? We're ready to go.
I'm voting for them too. Everybody in the office is voting for those guys.
Yeah.
Right there on your shirt. Heck yeah.
If you didn't know who we're voting for, this is going to give you a good clue. So, all right, guys, let's, what do we got, Dave? So, just as a reminder, guys, we better not just start talking.
Yeah.
Right? Let's tell everybody what Whiskey Wednesday is. These are short, sweet, to the point episodes. We're going to cover some things going on in our world, some topics in the short-term rental world that are relevant and hot. And obviously, our favorite part is the questions that you guys send in. So if you have questions, send them in to either support@odyssey.com or on our platform, wherever you're watching or listening on, in the comments, and we'll make sure we get to them and answer them on an upcoming episode. So let's dive in. What do we got today? What are we talking about? This is always, hold on, stop. I'm going to be the producer for a minute.
Sorry, guys.
This is called Whiskey Wednesday, and so because of that, I always have a glass of whiskey for Whiskey Wednesday. Dave does not drink whiskey or any other form of alcohol, so he always has a Diet Coke. Well, today we've got this thing called a Spindrift in front of us.
Yeah.
Why don't we have the
guys?
It's not a Diet Coke; it's a Coke Zero.
Things have been busy around here at Odyssey, and we don't have any Coke Zero in the office, so I had to go in and pull this thing out. It's not quite as good as a Coke Zero, but it's going to have to do today.
I actually like Spindrift. I said this thing called a Spindrift.
Not bad.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we got the blood orange.
I'm a fan of
tangerine. So we're switching it up today. Listen,
we don't like
to do
so
everything.
I don't like how it looks in the glass. So maybe don't use my whiskey glasses for Spindrift anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Just drink out of the can. It's a can drink.
I'll get another cup. So next time.
Moving on.
Okay.
So people, we lost half the audience already.
Yeah, jeez.
Dive in.
People like Spindrift. Maybe Spindrift sends us a couple cases out for this.
Yeah, unofficial sponsorship. All right.
All right. So without further ado, one of our friends, and actually a new member to Odyssey, Shelly, and her husband, Mike Florence, they asked us, as they're, avid listeners of this podcast, they said, you guys talked about the Guess Jeans story that Shawn was going to talk about. And I kind of put it on hold, I guess, a few weeks ago or a month ago and said, hey, we'll save that for another day. Well, she reminded us that we haven't talked about that story. This could be an all-time great Shawn Moore story. So I think people that haven't heard it, which a lot of people haven't, they ought to hear the Guess Jeans story. So let's
Shelley said we left a cliffhanger.
Yeah. So those of you who are avid listeners, this is
our Guess Jeans story part 2 of where I'm going to actually tell you the story, right? So back in high school, right? It was junior high. I moved to a new area in junior high. I used to grow up in kind of a rougher area of Utah, in like Ogden City, Utah. It was kind of a little bit of a rougher area. And I guess my parents must have caught a raise or something, because we moved to this cool area called North Ogden, right? And when I moved to North Ogden, at the time, my dad owned the sewing machine store. My whole childhood, just being thrifty and everything else, my mom made my clothes.
Homemade clothes.
Yeah. I had homemade clothes my entire childhood. And so when I was 12 years old, we moved to North Ogden, which is a little bit nicer area, a little bit more, a little bit more money over there. And all of a sudden I started showing up for junior high, and that's when I guess the clothes were a big deal, right? Homemade clothes are not that cool in junior high, even back in, the 90s, right? Late 80s, or I guess it would have been 90, right? And so I graduated high school in 95. So junior high,
Yeah.
I'm going in and looking around, everybody's got like the Gerbeau jeans and the Guess jeans and the Quicksilver shirts and everything else. And, I'm like, okay, I don't have any of that stuff. Well, a couple of months go by and I'm walking home from school and I saw that I'm walking by a pile of trash. Their trash cans are out for the next day to pick up, and there's a pair of Guess jeans in the trash. And so I kind of looked around and thought, I mean, maybe they fit, maybe they don't, but that's a pretty good looking pair of Guess jeans. And my head starts spinning. I'm thinking, well, at the very least, that logo looks really good on the back pocket.
And
so,
we're in the sewing business.
I'm in the sewing business. You know, my clothes are all homemade. So I'm thinking I could put that patch to work, right? And so I look around and I grab the pair of Guess jeans, stuff it in my backpack, and I hike home. And next day, that night, I unstitched the little triangle patch of the Guess patch.
On the back pocket.
On the back pocket.
Yeah.
I sewed it on the back pocket of my homemade jeans. Right.
Nice. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm set.
Dude, you didn't even need to go to Nordstrom.
I didn't have to go to Nordstrom. So, my dumbass. I go show up for school the next day. And my shirt's all tucked in. I'm ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, making sure everybody can see that patch on the back. And everybody starts laughing at me and like making fun of me. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, everybody's like, they're way ruder than they were with my homemade clothes.
Yeah, at least they didn't say anything.
Yeah, at least before they didn't say anything. I just wasn't wearing the cool stuff. Well, now I thought I had the cool stuff and everybody's making fun of me. And one of my buddies is like, dude, you're wearing a pair of girl jeans. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I said, I am not wearing a pair of girl jeans, asshole. I just went and bought these at Nordstrom's last night. Like brand new, you know. And totally lying about it. And he's like, dude, you bought girl jeans then? Because I didn't know that the Guess logo on girls' jeans had a red stitching around the outside, like the red light thing. Yeah. And then the boys had green.
Yeah.
And I happened to unstitch a red triangle patch. And so needless to say, I hurried and untucked my shirt and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and junior high kids are fairly relentless. Like I think we all know that, you know, growing up and going through those times of our life. But that night I got home and my mom was at home and she was like, thought that the night before was a brilliant idea. Yeah. So she's like, she went to the fabric store the next day and bought me this white and blue striped fabric that would look like a Quicksilver shirt. And she's like, I got this. It's going to look just like Quicksilver. We're in business. Like, we could do this for you. I'm like, nope, I'm shutting that down immediately. I'm like, no, Mom.
No, we tried that.
These guys are smart. They know what's going on. They know every detail. If a stitch is wrong, they know it. We've got to figure it out. Either we just got to roll with what we've got, or else I got to make some more money, or you've got to make more money, and we've got to get so Mom, we can buy the real
old
stuff.
School. When we were in Ogden, we might be able to pull this off. North Ogden, you can't. These guys are smart. Yeah, they don't fool around with this.
Exactly. Ogden, nobody would have known. They would have thought, Jews, you guys had raised, didn't you?
That's awesome.
North Ogden.
I think that's one of the great stories of the Shawn Moore era.
Oh my gosh,
that's hilarious, dude.
Stuff we do. Right?
I love that.
So there you go, Shelly. That's for Shelly. So she reminded us that we left that cliffhanger.
Oh, that's good.
So pay attention to the details, right? Like if you're doing something, the details matter.
Yeah.
That's
the moral of the story.
The moral of the story. Details
and in
matter.
Life and in whatever you do, pay attention to the details because
somebody's
calling you out.
You can't fake it. You know, like that. You remember when when I've heard fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Ever since that time in my life, I'm like, I'm not faking anything because they find out. People will find out. You're better off just saying, no, don't have the money. I can't do it. Not there. They're like, okay, no problem.
Right.
If you fake it,
they're like, dude, come on, bro.
Right. Yeah. That's
I guess jeans isn't real.
Nope.
Oh, I love that story. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. That's good. You know, it's good. You know, you're humble enough to look back and say, hey, come on.
It is what
it is. So I love that. All right. So let's talk about a trending topic. And this is something that's been around for a bit now, but it's becoming even more pronounced in business and in our world specifically is the AI. Yeah. AI is obviously an amazing tool. You know, depending on how you use it, but it is amazing for research. It's amazing for writing, you know, marketing and different things and getting ideas and stuff. And we have a member that's actually used it a little bit recently, and I think it's interesting to talk about because, you know, finding markets, finding areas, asking questions specifically to short-term rentals, I think is super important and something that we ought to consider using more often. If anything, just doing a lot of research about an area or property or geographically, things like that. So you would agree, I'd assume, huh?
Yeah. I mean, AI is here to stay, right? I mean, I don't think there's any question. I think that there's pros and cons to it. I think you really have to embrace it and say, hey, listen, it's here, right? Like it's not, and it's a real thing. It affects our lives every single day, like whether you know it or not. AI is feeding you all kinds of stuff on the marketing side, on everything. And so one of our members who's really, and I'm like, when you talk about the knowledge base of AI, like I'm like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 1 or 2, right? I'm not like the AI guy, right? But we've got a really, we've got a really brilliant collective group of people inside of our Vodacy family, and some of them are engineers and they're in the AI world. One of our members was showing us and saying, hey, listen, we can use it to look at some different markets, emerging markets, some things coming out, and doing some research. And it was really, really useful, like really useful. Mm-hmm. Like it was really pretty brilliant about what some of the information he was able to show us on the list of areas and locations that he was able to find, and really dialing in certain things about target audiences and everything else. And so, I think that, it really opened my eyes to say, holy crap, this could be a really great tool for us. Now, what was interesting is he's really good at AI. And we're really good at understanding what works in the short-term rental world. And both of them were necessary, right? It was necessary because he's saying, hey, I've got all this information. I don't know what to do with it now. And I don't know what's true and what's not and what I need to run with. I was able to look at it and say, we need to run with this, this, and this.
Right.
And this is not right? This is not something that's gonna work. And here's why. So I think it's always a mix of really having the expertise and the experience in whatever world and whatever you're using AI for, so that you can see that, that 15% that's off, right? Because it does, 85% is a good job, and it does it in a fraction of the time that we could do that research for. But you don't know what 15% is off, right, on his list. And I think that the key to that is saying, hey, listen, figure it out, but you've got to have both pieces. You've got to have that human element that can come in and say, hey, based on experience, based on what we do, we know this works, we know this doesn't. Here's some of the things that AI didn't recognize, but all this other stuff is super useful, and let's package it up and use it to make more money, accelerate our progress, everything else. And so, the other world that AI is just accelerating. I mean, it's accelerating so many different industries, but the marketing and copywriting world, right? There's that's a world that we're all exposed to every single day, right? It doesn't, whether we like it or we don't. And most of the things you see and you hear and they're fed to you on the marketing side, a lot of that is AI generated. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the AI does a better job of copywriting than a lot of people ever will. And the problem with it is, and I told this story before, is we had a guy who does a lot of syndications, and he's got a group of high net worth individuals, and they trust him on syndications. And he said, well, one of the hot topics is short-term rentals. So he had AI write a book. It took AI about 3 hours to write this book about short-term rentals. And then he took it to his group and said, hey, I just got this book. Opt in. We're going to raise some money for the next project. It's going to be a short-term rental project. And then all of a sudden he had an overwhelming response, and he started getting cold feet. He said, here's the problem. I don't know how to execute on all this stuff. I don't have the experience here. He called me up and said, Shawn, can you help me with this? I mean, and I said, send me the book first, and let me look at the book. The book was really good. I mean, it was probably, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably like a 7.5 or an 8. And there were some things that were not right in there. But again, he wasn't able to recognize the 15% was wrong that needed the adjustment. But also, to his credit, there is a lot of responsibility when you're raising money. And some people won't. They'll say, hey, listen, I used this tool to write the book. I used the tool to market interest. But the people who were giving him money thought that he was an expert because of the book. Yeah, right? The book gave him that credibility. And so this is where AI can be a little bit tricky for you, is it makes it harder to do your due diligence when you're diving into something, because he wasn't an expert. He did finally have that realization that, holy crap, I need to put the brakes on this. I need to pause this for a minute. And I have to say, is it responsible for me to take this money if I don't have the expertise to execute, right? And that's what he called us and said, do you want a partner? I said, no, I don't want a partner, but I think you're doing the right thing. I think you should pause, because there's a lot of moving parts in this game. And if you don't understand it, sure, AI did a great job of generating interest for you, but if you're going to go execute, that's a whole different story, right? And so, AI is here to stay by trying to get some, better ads, some better headlines, titles, all that stuff is is great, right? You get some really good ideas really fast, doing a lot of research really quickly, but really still having that experience in the knowledge base is critical that you can tap into, because then you can recognize that 10 or 15% that's off,
Right. And
right?
I think, yeah, and I want to go back to, I think you're spot on with AI and using it to research markets and areas, geographic areas for short-term rentals. Because in this example, the AI gave, 5 or 6 different areas that were prone to be successful SGR areas,
Yeah.
which was great.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't then just go out and buy a short-term rental in an area because AI says it's great.
Right.
You have to have a process, you have to have an underwriting tool. And that's where Vodacy came in and said, perfect, let's use these two in conjunction. Let's really evaluate the properties, decide if what the numbers look like, accomplish what you're trying to do.
Right.
And so your expectations are set, because just saying, hey, show me a market that's going to be great for short-term rentals, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to accomplish your goals, passive income, equity, all that kind of stuff. So having a proven process is super important, but using it for research and things like that, it's awesome. It gives you a great start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
It's and embrace it, right? Like I'm to the point in where I said, I want to go from a 1 to a 2 to a 4 or 5, right?
Right.
And be able to use it as the tool that it is built for, right?
Yeah.
And really up our game and do things better that we do, and save us time and accelerate our progress. I mean, there's no reason to, stick your head in the hole in the sand and say, I'm not doing this and this isn't happening, because it's here, and it affects every single one of our everyday lives. Everything that is thrown at us on social media and marketing and everything else, a lot of that is AI generated. And for you to be able to recognize that, hey, listen, that's now I've got to peel back some layers of the onion to make sure if I'm going to run forward with somebody as a mentor or a coach, or if I'm going to buy a product that had a great marketing campaign written by AI, but the product's really crappy and fulfillment on the back end is really crappy. I've got to look into that, because everybody looks really good on the front end right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's jump into a couple questions. And this is really my question. That is, we have a new school platform. It's called the 5 Years to Freedom, and something we've been talking about for a while. We've talked about it on various podcasts and different things, but I want you to tell us a little bit about what that freedom number is. We talk about the freedom number, and it's in conjunction with the 5 Years to Freedom, but what is the freedom number, and what should people know about that freedom number?
Yeah, your freedom number is specifically the number, the actual dollar amount number of your annual expenses, right? So if for me to pay my bills and live and have everything taken care of, what is that? Well, how much am I spending every single year on everything? Not just your bills, like how much are you spending on food and everything else, right? Figure that out. A lot of times it's really close to what you make, because people spend what they make. Most people, really. Right. So if you're making $100,000 a year, your freedom is probably close to $100,000 a year, unless you're really good at saving and you've got a lot of disposable income that you're putting away, right? Most people spend what they make. Yeah. And so, but your freedom number is that number that needs to, it's basically your nut you have to cover, right? Those are your obligations, your financial obligations that have to be paid. We call it a freedom number because our goal is to generate enough passive income that makes enough to cover that freedom number, right? Because if I have enough passive income from my assets to cover that number, I'm free. I'm financially free, right? That's what financial freedom is our definition, is having enough passive income to cover all of your life's expenses, right? And so we call it a freedom number because it's a goal, right? That's the target that we need to hit to be financially free. Gotcha. And so with the 5 Years to Freedom workshop that we just launched, and those of you that are not joining it, you ought to join it. It's absolutely free. Your only cost of admission is actually spending the time and doing it, right? But the goal of that is to help people, one, identify what their freedom number is, break that down over the next 5 years of what they need to do to chip away at that. So what can I do this year, and what do I need to do this year, so that by the time, if I do that this year, I do it next year, I do it next year, by the time I hit 5 years, I've got enough passive income to cover that number, right? Yeah. A lot of people are way closer than they think. And this is what I've realized over working with the thousands of Odyssey members that we have now, is people are way closer to their freedom number than they think they are. Yeah. And so and I'm talking about people that are school teachers with stay-at-home moms, all the way up to business owners and, high income earners, right? Everybody is, it's all relative. You don't have to
Right.
be a real high income earner to be financially free.
Yeah.
We've got, I've got pastors in there with stay-at-home moms. They don't make a lot of money, yet they're nearing almost financial freedom after a couple of years in our program, right? And so the goal of that is to help people realize, one, I want you to believe it's possible for you. So we're going to break it down, but also help you decide how to choose the right passive income vehicle. We love short-term rentals. It's not a short-term rental class. It's saying, how do you decide based on your resources of time, money, and knowledge, the number you need to hit in the next 5 years, what is the right vehicle for you? They all have pros and cons, including short-term rentals, right? And so the goal of that is to help people break that down and say, okay, how do I do some due diligence and choose the right passive income vehicle? And then how do I choose the right process and blueprint to follow, right? Because once you have those two things, now all it is taking action, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just saying, I believe I can do it. I vetted out the vehicle that I'm going to use, the passive income vehicle, and I vetted out and done some due diligence on learning how to vet out and and pick the right process, blueprint, path that I'm going to follow. When you have that, you just start taking action every single day, right? And it goes back to my point at the end of every episode, right? Pick the one thing you can do today, build the life you don't want to take a vacation from. It's taking action every single day, and we want to break that down for people. And that's what that is. But the freedom the freedom number itself is your goal, right? That's the outcome. That's the number that you need to hit to be financially free because you have enough passive income covering that number.
Yeah. You know, some more information and go down that process, go to the school platform. It's called the 5 Years to Freedom. It's a series of videos every single day, one video for about 10 to 12 minutes, sometimes a little less. There's some case studies on there. It's awesome. So I would jump in there. It's free. It's just jump in there and be committed to going through the 7 days. And it's awesome.
And we built it as a community.
Yeah.
The great part about that is you're going to surround yourself with other people that are doing this and run down this road, right? That's what's really fun is it's got a great community. It's brand new. So you can get in there, you start engaging, start talking to other people, you start surrounding yourself with other people that are raising the bar in their own lives and following this process. And before you know it, rising tide raises all boats, right? And so it's a really fun, not only the trainings itself, the resources that are in there, but the community continues to grow, and a lot of really great people are running down this road together, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yeah. All right, last question. Is there a strategy on the OTAs that you suggest will get you noticed and get you more bookings? So, a lot of people are like, okay, how do I get the algorithm, or how do I trick the system, or is any things that I can do on the OTAs, and that's VRBO and Airbnb, to get me more bookings?
Right. So one, there is the short answer is yes, there's stuff you can do. The long answer is going to be that people misunderstand what they can do. People think because everybody wants to sell the easy button. We were just talking about marketing and we were talking about all this stuff, right? Everybody wants to say, hey, all you have to do is plug into our AI tool. We've got AI generated marketing for you, and you're going to rank higher on the OTAs. You're going to get more visibility, and you're going to rank higher, and you're going to book. That's all great. It sounds really good. But from experience, I can tell you, I don't write the algorithms. I don't know how that algorithm works on any of those OTAs. They're all a little different, but I can tell you one thing, I promise you. They care about one thing above and beyond everything else, and that is that they make money on your property. These are for-profit companies, right? So if you don't have an offer that converts, if you don't have a property that somebody books above everybody else's property, they are not going to rank you very high. It's like walking in the grocery store. They put their highest margin, best moving items right at eye level, right? They're not on the bottom. They're not on the top. They're right where you see them. And a lot of them are right when you walk in and right at checkout, right? They're going to make sure you see the best products that they make the most money on. Same way with the OTAs. It's business 101, period. Once you understand that, now the things you can do to do better is really understanding marketing and understanding how to get somebody to book your property above and beyond everybody else, how to get that person to pay more for your property than somebody else's. And that's why it's not one silver bullet. It's not going in and shifting around your photos every 5 days or whatever because the algorithm likes. I don't care who says that, what they're telling you. They don't know how to get bookings. They're trying to sell you something that sounds easy so you can get a higher ranking. And maybe you jump up a page or you jump up a couple spots, and then I promise you, you're going to last there for about 30 seconds and you're going to drop back down because nobody booked your property, right? And so it's understanding marketing fundamentals, right? I have to have an offer, a really good offer. And so the offer has to consist of really putting together and developing a unique experience for a target audience. That's my offer. My offer is not this great home, right? I have a great home that is part of this great experience for a target audience. Once I have that offer, now I've got to get the marketplace to choose that offer above everybody else's, right? And there's a lot of things that go into that. So now how am I going to stand out in the crowd? How am I going to articulate what I have with my photos and with my listing? Because I don't get to talk to somebody about my property. I don't have a sales team that gets to talk to anybody. And so if I don't understand marketing principles and fundamentals, you will not stay highly ranked because you're not going to get your property booked, period. And so, I wish I could answer it like, here's the three things you can do. Right. The number one thing is understanding how to put together a great offer and then how to articulate that offer to the marketplace, because that will get you booked, and that will get you booked above and beyond everybody else. And then your rankings will continue to skyrocket.
Yeah. All of the others are kind of short-lived. Like you said, you're there for 30 seconds. Yeah. You make a change to the wording or to this or to that. And then you see yourself pop up one or two, and then you're just back down.
Right.
And that's a lot of work and effort. If you would just put in the work and effort initially to have a great experience, great photos, great design, all that kind of good stuff, people are going to book your property, and then they're going to keep it at the top because that's where they're making their money. Exactly.
Right. It's the algorithms do like to see active listings.
Sure.
Like people who say that, they're not lying. They like to see an active listing. But they don't care if there's an active listing that doesn't get booked. They're like, this property never makes any money. And you shouldn't care. Yeah. Do you give a shit if you're on page 1, if you're not getting any bookings?
Right.
No. So you're going to finagle all try to finagle all the algorithm stuff and change out your headline and change out your photos and change out your description and do this and that and shuffle it around and change your guest count once in a while and change this and change that. And it doesn't get you any bookings. It just gets you ranked higher. It just, you're doing, who cares, right? You're putting a worse offer in front of people that don't want it anyway. Yeah. So learn the fundamentals of having a great offer and knowing how to articulate it so people choose your property above everything else. Yeah. Once you understand that and you dial that in, you're off to the races. Now you're just cashing checks, right? Now you're saying, okay, I understand this. I don't have to sit and micromanage this property and the marketing on this property. I do all the heavy lifting on the properties up front. And it's why we spend so much time on the front end. Yeah. Like this is for us, this investment class is really heavily weighted time-wise on the front end, because I want, after it's all set up, I want it to turn into a passive investment. And people are like, none of these are passive investments. It's most of the time it's because they don't spend the right time on the front end. Right. And if you're willing to spend as much time as we do on the front end and the property comes out, it becomes a very passive investment at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. As good as the guest story was at first, that last couple 30 seconds was like marketing gold.
All right. Hey, so rewind it, you guys.
If people don't take advantage of that and get involved and do that, I mean, they missed the boat, dude.
Hey, right? We see it all the time though, right? I mean, I tell people it's a lot, when they say it's lonely at the top when you're in these really crowded marketplaces, it's way easier to operate at the top than it is in the middle of the market. The middle of the market is exhausting.
Super crowded.
Yeah. It's so crowded and so like these markets are so saturated in the middle of the markets. And when you really understand what you need to do to raise the bar toward the top of the market, it's a whole different ballgame. It's not nearly as crowded. You're not bumping elbows with everybody. Everybody up there's making money, and the fun part about it is you just don't have new entries into the top of the market in most of these areas very often. So we want to see more. I want to see more people do it, which is why we talk about it all the time. But executing on it and taking action on it is a different story.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. We always appreciate you joining us. We know how valuable your time is, and it means a lot that you spend it with us. At the end of every episode, you guys don't ask you 2 favors, because we don't run ads, we don't run sponsorships, we don't want people telling us what we can and can't talk about. And so the only way the show grows is if you guys share it. If you have other people that want to jump into the short-term rental game with their eyes wide open, want to hear these conversations on Wednesdays when Dave and I get down and hash it out, and then on Fridays when we bring in short-term rental investors and talk about their journey. Hopefully those things are helpful for you, and if you know somebody else would be helpful for, share the show. Those things help us. If you've got more than 30 seconds, like it, review it, whatever platform you're watching or listening on, those things help us as well. And the final, most important thing that I ask you guys at the end of every episode is to pick that one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take vacation from. Cheers, my friends. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, buddy.